Access Fort Wayne offers reflections of our community. Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne are a service of the Allen County Public Library. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting organizations. For more information about creating your own television program with Access Fort Wayne, call 421-1250.
Hello, and welcome to the American Veteran. I'm Dale Parrish, your host. My co-host is Carl Fowler. Before I introduce my guest, I need to thank Tom Litchin at the Mr. Coney on Coldwater Road. The Korean War veterans had their summer get-together about two or three weeks ago, and it was a potluck. Everybody brought something to share. And Sally, my wife, suggested, why don't we get some Coney dogs? She thought everybody would enjoy them. So we stopped by Mr. Coney and talked to Tom and a few days ahead of time and asked him about it. And he says, well, sure. He said, just call him hour ahead of time and he'd have them ready. So I told him it was for the Korean War Veterans Association. And so I called him on that day of the picnic, and we stopped by, and sure enough, he had them ready. He gave us a special price for them, and he even thanked me for my service, which topped it all off. So again, I want to thank Tom Litchin at Mr. Coney on Coldwater Road. Our guest today is a gentleman that was born and raised in Hungary. He escaped Hungary when the communists took over. He worked his way to the United States. He learned English. He joined the military and served in Vietnam. He earned the Combat Infantry Badge, Bronze Star for
valor.
Yeah. For valor, and also the Purple Heart. So I'd like to introduce Major Tibor Bierbaum. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dale.
Yeah. Hope you don't mind we call you T.
Oh, please do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you was brought up in Sopron?
Yeah.
Sopron.
Sopron in Hungary, which is the northwestern part of Hungary. It's right on the Austrian border, and because of its geographical location, that town and region was traded back and forth through history between Austria during the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. So in this particular town, most of the people primarily spoke German. So that's how my family name, Bierbaum, is a typical German name, although Tibor, my given name, is a very typical Hungarian name.
I see. Well, it's a very uncommon name here.
Well, here it is, but in Hungary, it's very typical, like Mike or
John.
Yeah. And at times I was very curious where my family came from. It was getting ready for the year 2000, and I wanted to search the family background because while I was living in Hungary, any Western influence, relatives, and that kind of thing was really a danger, because totalitarian society would not want the Western influence, influence of democracy to infiltrate the minds of people in bondage, which Hungary and any country behind the Iron Curtain following World War II. They were literally slaves to the Soviet Union. So my family couldn't and dare not to talk about family living in the eastern area. And we had some families, and matter of fact, I didn't even know their name or location. So when I came to the United States, I was very inquisitive, and I asked, and more I asked, more interested I got. So by year 2000, as a gift to the family, I wanted to give them a family tree, let them know where they came from. So I picked everybody's mind, and I got some help and went to court records and that kind of a thing. So I find out that I had a great-grandfather who got it in his mind that Bierbaum, which in German means beer tree, there's no such a thing. So the name Bierbaum could not be right. So he got it in his mind that it should be Bierbaum, pear tree. Bierbaum means pear tree, and that would be more logical.
Oh.
So he changed the family name, and in that time, whatever the father did or head of the family did, everybody followed. So although his son grudgingly changed their name, they were for his wishes that they were Bierbaum.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But then I find out as soon as the old man died, then his sons changed their names back.
Oh,
and
okay.
then during the family tree research, find out that the name was correct. The Bierbaum, beer tree, was a correct name for a family because two brothers came from Austria, and we find the records, and so validated, although I'm sorry to say the old man was wrong, but that's how my family name is Bierbaum. That gave us a big concern after World War II, because there was an agreement among the Allied countries that German nationals should be sent back to Germany, resettle them, because while Germany was occupying countries with the German forces, they were German civilians, came and took residence, and the Allies wanted to make sure that the Germans go back to Germany. And it was a poorly written law, although in spirit intended to be a justful and rightful thing, but then it was exploited. So the way to separate people from their property is to finger them, so to speak, to be German nationals. And then no trials, no courts. They just put them on a train and shipped them westward. And a lot of them ended up along the way, including my uncle and his whole family, ended up in Germany. Fortunately, in life there are some good fortunes. They ended up around the area of Stuttgart, and so they living in West Germany, and as I've mentioned earlier, that was the black sheep, so to speak, from the Soviet Union point of view, because we had relatives in West Germany, and that was not a very good thing from the communist ideology. And that's why my parents would not talk about those relatives, and although my dad spoke German fluent, he would never dare to teach me the German language. Of course, the government was more then eager to teach everybody Russian because of their ideology.
Okay. You said your dad was in World War II.
Yes. He was drafted when Germany occupied Hungary on the way to the Soviet Union. He was drafted, and then he was in the Hungarian military, and he was captured. He was a POW and served 4 years in a POW camp on the Black Sea in the town of Odessa. And so when he came back, I knew the conflict from him between what the government was telling us, praising communism and socialism, and what really happened, what reality from what the Russians called Soviet Union, the paradise.
Yeah. He was a prisoner of the Russians.
Yes,
because he fought on the Eastern Front, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I knew from him, and I believe my dad more than the government. Sure. And of course, in our everyday life, we experience the conflict, what the government was telling us, and the ideology, and the way we were living.
Yeah. Okay. What was the school system in Hungary? Was it 12 years like it is here, or?
Well, similar. My first 4 years, which was right after the end of World War II, was in our church school, church elementary school. So right away, Soviet Union, Russian, and I have to say that the Hungarian government was a puppet government for the Soviet Union, didn't influence the government right away to get rid of all the schools. So for 4 years, good for me, the church elementary schools were functioning. So I went to a church school. We had religion training and all the classes. And then when I went to the 5th grade, that was a year when all the schools were nationalized. So now the government dictated what classes you're going to take, and religion instruction ceased, although the churches were not closed, but they used their economic influence on who is attending the church and how often you're going to attend. Later on, people were afraid to get married in church.
It branded them, right?
It was a mark.
Sure.
And when a baby was baptized, people would go to a different town where they were not known just to have the baby baptized.
I see.
And by then, all the job opportunities were nationalized. So you work for the government. Government was the boss. And the government could say and did say that, Bierbaum, you've been attending church quite often. You're not a true communist. You may not believe in communism. So we're going to have to evaluate, and I'm just, painting a picture, evaluate that what job you're going to have. Or maybe you don't have a job for you.
So they found ways to punish you for that.
Well, threaten you first.
Okay.
And fear is extremely effective. And then, make examples of people. Sure. Our pastor in the church was pretty vocal, not inflammatory, but vocal about the Word of God and the promise, and keep the faith in the people. And he was moved. He was moved to another church in unfamiliar environment, and of course, when you're in that situation, you get the message. But he was a strong he was a man of strong faith, and he continued to preach from the Bible, and he was sent to prison because of that.
That's a shame.
So when you see those things, then you're concerned about your future, about your family. They also use the guilt through association. So like the three of us, we freely talk in our country about the goods and the issues that need to be changed. And we don't have to worry about, oh, the government going to retaliate. Now, if we would be in Hungary, we would be watching every word, everything we're going to say, because if I would make a political joke, for example, not only I would be punished in Hungary at that time, but both of you would be punished. And
By
then
association.
if your wife would not turn you in to the government, then she would be also guilty. And of course my wife would be just as guilty, because if she would not turn me in, and then my kids through guilt of association. So these things would spread, and it goes very fast and put fear in people's mind, and fear is with you all the time. And you were very concerned. So there were a lot of ways of dividing people, and when you are alone, you're not very effective. You're not a free thinker. So that's why, as I mentioned earlier, my parents were very much afraid to tell me that we had relatives in West Germany, that even their names and where they were living. But you know, God is so wonderful, because if my parents would have told me where my relatives live in Stuttgart, when in 1956 I escaped, certainly I would have been able to, I would have the knowledge to look them up and say, well, guess what? Here I am. But I couldn't do that. And of course, I would not been able to come to the United States, or I could, there would not have been a way for me to come to the United States, because I had relatives in Germany. I'm sure I would have stayed in Germany. As 17-year-old, I was a tool and die maker.
That's what I
So
was
there
gonna
would have
ask.
been a job for me, and I got that trade school after high school. I had a trade school not high school, I'm sorry, after the 8th grade. I went to trade school only because my uncle had some influence and let me go in, because my dad was influencing me. I didn't believe in communism. I was not a true communist. I didn't join the youth group. And so schools after the 8th grade was denied for me, higher education. So I had a trade school, and I was very thankful that I could do that, because if I would not have been able to get a trade, I would have been an unskilled 12-year-old kid with no future at all.
Right.
But God worked things out, and my parents, my mom was very, very brave, because although the churches were monitored, church attendance were monitored, religion instructions were well, almost outlawed. My mom filled in the gap. So I had a strong faith, and I was able to come. God guided me to come to United States, open those doors. Doors closed behind me. 1956 gave me an opportunity to escape to Austria and through the International Red Cross without any effort on my part, because I could not make decisions, and not only I could, but people behind the Iron Curtain really had no idea how to make decisions, how to guide your life. And I just trusted God, and where He gonna send me, I would be true to the faith, and I will do my best. And I wanted to be independent.
What set up your leaving and going to Hungary? Was your parents still alive then?
Oh yeah, my parents were alive, and I had relatives in Hungary, cousins and uncles. October 23rd, 1956, when Hungarians were suppressed to such a degree that your life literally meant nothing. So you were at the dumps. You were at ground zero.
No future whatsoever.
That's right. So, and as a last resort, they rebelled. Now, this was a situation where people were completely disarmed from 1945 on. I mean, not even air rifles. Completely disarmed from information. All radios were confiscated. We didn't have telephones. If you had to make a telephone call, you had to go to like what we have, a city county building, and then you had to tell somebody who you want to call, how long you're going to talk to them, prepay, and then they would give you the receiver and you make your call. They would dial the numbers. So, I mean, tremendous population control. And of course, that was the purpose of isolating Hungary from Western influence.
Sure.
And but the human mind and spirit always yearned for freedom. And in 1956, when there was everything taken away from Hungarians, they rebelled with empty hand. I was working a year in another town 40 miles away from my hometown, an industrial town, and when the revolution started in Hungary, in the capital. So number of people, I mean thousands, gathered together in this town and talked about what we should do. People were brave in Budapest, and a lot of them died, and maybe we should do something to get democracy, get Hungary freedom. Hungarians yearned to get rid of the Soviet Union, send them back. They looked at Austria. Austria got its neutrality, although after World War II, Austria was occupied by the Russians, but then they were able to send them, so to speak, out of the country. Hungary wanted to do the same thing. And so empty-handed, we surrounded the secret police station, and fortunately they did not fire upon us, and the officials were all arrested, and some of them very roughly treated, because there's also a dark part of a human spirit of revenge. And when you're in that situation, mob rules. And I saw that and it's not a nice picture, but that's where the borders opened up, and for a brief period, a lot of people could escape. Well, I wasn't at home, so I couldn't tell my parents that I'm not coming home.
That had to be a very hard thing to do.
Well, they didn't know. Well, I had no choice.
Yeah.
I knew that I took side of freedom, of democracy, and the Russians were coming back. And on 4th of November, the Russians with 10 division came back into Hungary to suppress the revolution. And on the 12th of November, it took them, a few days to come in. On the 12th of November, when there was no doubt in my mind that they will take revenge on everybody, including me, because what we did in October.
Sure.
So I had no choice. So I had 3 other friends of mine. We all took part in a revolution, and we decided, standing on the street corner, say, you're going to stay, be arrested, and then put in a labor camp, sent to Siberia, the big, a one-way trip, or we go to the West, although we don't know much about the Western countries, but cannot be as bad as Hungary was. We didn't speak any other language but Hungarians, so we joined those who escaped into Austria, and then International Red Cross helped us to resettle us and find jobs and that kind of a thing.
Okay, so you come over on ship then?
Well, one day in this camp, my name came up on the list to come to the United States. I didn't sign up for it. I could not wish for such a great gift. I mean, I can't even give you an example how great gift that was in my mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Something that you couldn't wish for. And there it was. So from Austria, I went on a train to Bremenhaven and got on a ship, a troop-carrying ship from World War II, although that particular ship didn't take action. It was one of those later models, but there were still bunk beds and, all tiered
Not
up.
that far apart.
That's right. But it was wonderful for us. I ate my first banana on that ship, first banana in my life.
I'll be darned.
I ate, I think, the second orange in my life on that aboard the ship. I met the first African American aboard that ship, and I could not comprehend, just to tell you how isolated Hungary was, I could not comprehend that how a person's hand could be dark, but the palm could be like mine.
Sure.
And I was 17-year-old. So not being noticed and not being, obvious, I would see one of these guys and I would rub my hand on his skin, and then I'd secretly look at to see if it came off.
Yeah.
And that's how I was introduced.
Okay. I'm going to have to interrupt. I think we'll better have another program later about this.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting for somebody that's gone through the experiences that you have.
I hope you enjoyed the program. We're going to see if we can get T back on for another program. So remember, if you see a veteran, walk up to him, say thank you for your service, and thank you. Good night.